this is obviously a state-driven, state-level, policy directive. And it's saying that districts have to have a common policy about this. We have school-based policies on this currently, so it's the same kind of impact in terms of what students are expected to do at school. It's just a difference of whether that policy is coming from the school level versus the kind of greater weight that comes from a district level policy. So that's one of the differences. But as I kind of described to those folks, what we're doing currently in K through 8 is exactly the same thing of what the governor's executive order is asking for. The main difference then being at the high school level. That's where there is some difference. There would be a change for our students and families to adjust to.
What would be the challenges besides those older students having to adjust to that new normal? What would be the challenges the district faces in implementing something like this?
So again, that's the biggest thing, would be that it is different for the high school level, and those are the students who they have the most experience in using those devices. It's probably most ingrained for them. It's a part of their life in a way that it isn't quite yet for elementary or middle school level students. And I think that there are more activities and other things that they're involved in. There may be more things that they are involved with their families with, where maybe they have childcare responsibilities with the family. Maybe they have work responsibilities that they're doing. There's more communication that's happening with those students that they may be expected to do during the school day. And it would be different because normally right now, students at the high school level in our district are expected to keep their phones off and away during class time, but between classes, during free periods, and during lunch, they're able to use those devices, and they of course take that opportunity to do that. And we have a lot of family members who are expecting to have that access to their students during the day if there's an emergency or if there's just other information that they need to try and relay to their students. They're expecting that their students are going to be able to receive that and respond if necessary at some point. So that would be a change for them, and that's something we want to prioritize processing with those families, with those students, and with our school staff before anything new is implemented.
When you're talking about these older students and their attachment to their phone, they have it with them everywhere they go. Are you seeing any problems with students when it comes to phones, like it's stated in that executive order, with mental health and loneliness and those types of things?
Well, I mean, I think that at this point the research is very clear about that, and I think that educators across the country have become more and more familiar and knowledgeable with how devices and the entire culture around being connected and being online 24 hours a day has impacted these latest generations of children. And it's something that is a serious concern. We can see it in how it affects their mental health. We can see how it affects their distraction level, their ability to focus, just the pull on someone who has one of those devices. We as adults feel it, even those of us who haven't been, in a relative sense, we haven't been using it our entire lives, and we're still ingrained with the notion to want to check our phone constantly to see if there anything new has come in, new messages, new responses to posts, new news to look at, all those things. And it's even stronger for students who have been using these devices for basically their entire lives. So it is a concern, and we absolutely are aligned with the government. We're absolutely aligned with the governor's concerns about mental health, about student well-being, and distraction during the academic day. The only difference is in kind of how that's pulled off and wanting to make sure that we have an opportunity to process how that'll all happen with our students and families and our school staff, because they need to be involved in that discussion and really understand and have a chance to ask questions about how this is going to affect them and what those expectations will be.
And this policy has to be effective October 31st this year, and it has to be
implemented by January 1.
Yeah. Do you have enough time to get that done?
We do, and especially because, again, we're very close to what the governor has directed at this point. Our elementary and middle school levels already have school-based policies that phones will be off and away throughout the entire academic day. At the high school level, it's a little different for us. Phones are expected to be off and away during class time, but then between classes, during free periods, and during lunch, devices can be used. So that's how it differs for us here in 4J. And we would just need to make a change to our device policy, implement that as a district-wide rather than a school-based policy. And there is time to do that. I know that some districts in the state are interested in creating and implementing their policy before the beginning of the school year, because it can definitely be easier to, when you're going to do something very different, to do that where you have a chance to teach before the start of the year and then have a consistent policy and practice all the way through the year rather than changing up in the middle of the year. But we want to make sure, again, that we have that time to process anything that's going to be different with our families, with our students, with our school staff before that goes into effect. So that might require us to take more of that time that's allowed to us under the directive.
I know behavioral health improvements is the aim, but also I saw academic improvements. Do you think, or how do you think something this drastic as no phones all day for these students will impact academic performance of the students?
Well, I mean, again, here it's hard to say because we're very close to what the governor has asked for already. So in terms of at the elementary and middle level, phones being off and away during the entire school day. And then at the high school level, phones are off and away during class time. And of course, that's the time when we do expect students to be on task, to be attentive to what their teachers are saying and what they're asking for, to any work that's happening in the class. Those things are already expected, and that's the norm that should be existing in our schools. So it's very close to what the governor has asked for. So I'm not sure what we would see in terms of the differences there, because I think really what we're talking about is that difference in the between classes, during those free periods, during lunch, to maybe lessen how devices are as dominant as they can be in terms of a student cultural experience, and keeping the school day really completely free from that urge, that desire to kind of keep checking the device. And I think that's where the big difference lies in the governor's directive.
Could it impact bullying and threats and things like that?
Well, I mean, anything is possible, So, I mean, again, if there's things that are, could possibly maybe be done during the school day that maybe someone wouldn't do at another time, then yes. But I think it's good for everybody to remember that these devices and the culture that surrounds them is something that exists 24 hours a day. And students have their relationship with that culture 24 hours a day. So they're going to have access to their devices and be using and being in that environment before school, after school, in the evening. So anything that might have been sent in the morning can still be read after school as opposed to being read during the day. Those concerns about what your peer group is up to, if there's somebody that you're having difficulty with online, those things will still exist. It'll just be that you won't be seeing that and attending to that during the school day. But definitely that culture is still there and happening kind of all day.
And one more question for you, Kelly. I know you can't really specify right now, but as far as implementing it in the high schools, any idea how you can kind of close the gap with those in between times between classes?
I mean, it would just be that the expectation would change. Instead of it being, that devices can be used, they'd be expected to be off and away. And so then it would fall to school staff to essentially be monitoring that. And that's something that, we have a concern about, because we do want to protect the attention of our educators to be kind of focused on educating, and the more things that they have to do in that school environment to sort of manage student behavior, especially when it's going to be something that is, students are very much going to want to do that. And it's not something like, where they are acting out in some sort of an extreme behavioral way. It's something that they're very used to doing. It's a legal activity everywhere else. So yeah, that could be a challenge with sort of getting that done. Some of our schools use pouches, where students check their device in and seal them in that pouch, during the class time. Those are options that districts have to look at about, have that something that would happen during the entirety of the school day, which sort of removes removes that then as something that would be a distraction. The expectation would be devices would be, secured in a locker or in one of those secure pouches. So it wouldn't be something that they would have on their person and then be able to be kind of tempted to bring out and check during those between class periods or lunch or something like that. Again, for the high school level, because we have open campuses, because people are able to go off campus for lunch, it is quite challenging because they essentially have that freedom to be able to do that, and I don't believe that there's an expectation that that schools would be kind of trying to control that time when students are off campus. So again, there's a lot that all the districts across the state are trying to kind of quickly absorb with this and understand the expectations. And we believe there's going to be some sample policy language that's going to be available for districts to take a look at and compare and see how that fits with our current policies and practices, and then start to look at those logistical challenges about how would you implement this. And again, we want to really be thoughtful in terms of what would the questions be that our parents and families will have, and make sure that we have an opportunity to process that with them and with students and with school staff before anything is implemented.
And you mentioned parents. You have an idea of the pulse of this community of parents. Any pushback expected, or how much?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, it's, for one, this is America in 2025. There's, you're always going to find folks who have strong sentiments about just about anything. And it's pretty typical that generally folks don't like to be told, what to do, especially if it's something that has otherwise kind of been something that they're used to doing. Taking away people's, sort of ability to do things, that's always, can be a tough sell. I know that there's other districts in which this has gone very smoothly, that there was concern that there was going to be more upheaval around kind of making an all-day cell phone ban, and then in reality, it went pretty smoothly. There wasn't a lot of pushback from students or from families. So we may experience that. I have a feeling that we will definitely hear from some families that are quite concerned about potentially losing the ability to be in contact with their students or to hear from their students during the school day. So that's one of those pieces that we have to process to make sure that everybody understands what the expectations from the governor's order are and what our responsibility is in executing that order and how that's going to play out. And so we want to give an opportunity for people to be heard on that and to make sure that they understand what the expectations are before we're expected to have that change be implemented.
And your next step from today, what's next towards it?
Probably looking at the sample policy language when it comes in and starting to think about what the timeline would be for implement or getting the school board to look at a draft policy, get approval of that, and then also to look at, all right, what's our process going to be for having that conversation with our families for whom it would be a change, working that through with students, et cetera, and trying to see how could we do this in a really healthy way where people understand what the end goal is, which is trying to have an even safer and more distraction-free environment in our schools.